This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Welcome to Usapang Bayan. Ako po si George Chua, kasama ang aking co-host na si Rich Marquez. Pag-uusapan po natin ang iba't ibang issue na kinahaharap ng mga kandidato sa darating na eleksyon. At tatalakayin din po natin ang iba-ibang pangyayari sa bansa.
Ikinagagalak po naming makapanayam para sa ating Botany 1 series ang dating sekretary ng DILG at isa po sa mga lumalahok bilang senador para sa darating na eleksyon, Mr. Raffy Alunan.
Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, George, and thank you, Rich.
So, umpisan ho natin. Dahil kasi the last time you were in service was about 20 years ago.
Yes.
So, can you tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you went into the private sector?
Well, before I joined government, I was in the private sector.
Okay.
I was in the private sector from the time I graduated in 1970 until 1989. In 1989, I was recruited by the Cory administration and I was given the post of Undersecretary of Tourism. That was a period where for 3 years I did nothing but engage in crisis management. Because there was, we had to deal with the Pinatubo crisis that impacted on tourism. We had to deal with the Iran-Iraq war, which impacted global travel. We had to deal with the '89 coup, which brought the economy down. We had to deal with the Baguio earthquake, which impacted on the tourism industry in Baguio. So it was one crisis after another. At the same time, our task was to make sure that President Cory Aquino finished her term because she was the subject of 9 coup attempts. Fortunately, the last one was in 1989. But it was enough to bring us down and regain the title of Asia's sick man. The next 4 years, oh, by the way, I also served as the spokesman during that time for the Philippine government in the RP-US basis talks. And then I got elevated to the position of Secretary of Tourism when Secretary Peter Garucho moved over to the DTI. So I took over. I was there for a little over a year. And then when President Aquino decided to support Secretary Ramos, then Secretary of Defense, as the presidential candidate, she asked me to campaign for him and serve as his spokesman. So I resigned my position, campaigned for him, we won, and then I became the Secretary of Interior and Local Government. During that time, we had to implement the local government code. It was the first time it was being implemented after the transition period. And also, we were managing the Philippine National Police, which was divorced from the DND. It used to be known as the Philippine Constabulary INP, or Integrated National Police. But once it was transferred to the DILG, the newly created department, then it became the Philippine National Police. I wore 3 hats there. One as a local government policy maker, another one as a public safety policy maker, and the third one had to do with internal security, and particularly anti-terrorism.
During your posts, primarily as
Yes.
DILG, where you are, I guess, best known, no? What would you say would be your most significant accomplishments?
Yes.
Wow. There were a number. If we were looking at it from just, if we were to divorce the local government side from the interior side, there were a number of initiatives that were undertaken during our time, but mostly in the area of peace and development. I chaired concurrently the National Committee on Peace and Order. It was known as a council, the National Council on Peace and Order. And this was replicated at the regional, local, and barangay levels. And we used this mechanism to talk peace to the different rebel factions, the right, the left, and the Muslim secessionists. We were successful in, as an administration, as a member of the team, in forging a peace agreement with the RAM SKPYOU. That was early on, it was somewhere in 1993. And then because of our persistent effort through an inclusive approach in discussing peace in Mindanao, we were able to eventually forge a peace agreement with Nur Miswari of the MLF, but with popular buy-in from the different segments of Muslim Mindanao, including the Christian communities, because they were part of the
So they
national
were part
conversation.
of the consultative process.
Yes, we consulted them and we listened to them. They knew that we were taking note of everything that they were saying and integrating in the overall peace package. So that's the reason why we got support from the OIC, that's the Organization of Islamic Conference,
Yes.
and the clans, the political leaders, etc. The local government officials were also disciplined. There were many disciplinary actions that were taken against erring officials to send the word that we meant business. Good governance means leadership by example. Kasi we defined good government then as being matino and mahusay, having integrity and the competence to deliver results. No? Oftentimes, one was matino but not mahusay, or some were masuhusay but not matino, and some of them were neither mahusay or matino. So we had to set the standard. We had to define that, and we judged people according to that standard. So there were some that had to be suspended. No? So that was very important. In the interior side, Oplan Pagbabago and Oplan Paglalansag were crucial strategic initiatives for our peace and development goal, which fell under the umbrella of Philippines 2000. That was the vision of the Ramos administration of modernizing and professionalizing the Philippines. Oplan Pagbabago had to do with re-energizing the bureaucracy, improving their delivery of service, reducing bureaucratic red tape, which actually began during the time of Cory Aquino, and we were continuing that very good program. Oplan Pagbabago had to required getting rid of scalawags. So during my time, we started with the process of house cleaning in the PNP with 63 generals and colonels who were retired early. They were given early retirement. And in the next 3 to 4 years, about 3,000 more were axed. Now, in the case of Oplan Paglalansag, we defined private armies as more than 2 people carrying firearms congregating in a public area. So we broke up organizations or armies or groups that were more than 2 armed people with legitimate weapons or legitimate licenses to possess. At the same time, recovering illegal firearms. Now, in one of President Ramos's address to the nation, he said that the recovery of loose firearms during our time was second only to the recovery of loose firearms during martial law. Now, in the case of breaking up the private armies, we also had to focus on another assignment that I was given by President Ramos, which was I was the cabinet officer in charge of ARMM. And when we looked at the profile of violence in ARMM at the time, there were fewer casualties from actual skirmishes between government forces and Muslim rebels. Most of the casualties in Muslim Mindanao had to do with the family feuds, the clan wars that fueled this cycle of rido or revenge. No? Walang katapusan yon. So what we did was we launched a campaign to pacify the feuding families. And I remember we employed the services of, we obtained the support and cooperation of Princess Tarhata Lukman. She was the wife of Mindanao Independence Movement founder Rashid Lukman. General Mamarin Talao, retired Philippine Army general, and Dimas Pondato, who was, I think, the head of Muslim affairs at the time, with the support of the MNLF reformist group. And they were going from clan to clan to, pacify, and then at the same time recover firearms for us. And those were very, very big initiatives, and we were quite happy with what happened. In fact, this Oplan Paglalansag, George, I remember about 3 years ago, I got a call out of the blue from Digong Duterte. I didn't know it was Digong on the line because it was an unknown, unlisted number. But he said, "Hey, Secretary Alunan, I'm calling from Davao. This is Digong." "Oh, Digong, how are you?" He says, "I'm happy to report to you that I'm still applying the Alunan doctrine." So I paused on the phone. I said, "Digong, you're talking to a senior citizen. Please refresh my memory. What's the Alunan doctrine?" He says, "Oy, kalimutan mo yung Oplan Paglalansag." I said, "Okay, I remember now." He says, "I'm still applying it. More than 2 people, ina-arrest na namin."
Sir, you mentioned about the peace process as well as the ARMM. Very briefly po, what's your stand on the controversial Bangsamoro measure?
Well, I am for peace, but I am against the way the process was conducted. Because instead of leading to peace, it's going to lead to armed conflict. And I'm not the one saying that. It's the people of Mindanao saying that. And I validated that when I went to Mindanao last August, precisely to check whether what we were hearing here was correct. Contrary to what we did in 92 to 96, to gain the support of the Muslim community, and the Lumads and the Christians, that eventually led to the 1996 agreement, the process conducted here was entirely different. It was not inclusive. It was not transparent. It was not consultative. And even the Muslims themselves say, we don't know what BBL really means. It's just that we're being fed that if we're against BBL, we're pro-war. We're anti-peace. We reject that. How can we go for BBL when we don't know what it stands for, what it means? Second, they said, the MILF is such a small organization where the Muslim community is in the millions. These guys are in just a few thousands. Who gave them the right to represent all of us? We never gave them that privilege or the right to represent us. So that. And then the Christian communities, of course, feel left out of the conversation as well. And the tribes in Sulu and Tawi-Tawi are very much against BBL because they think that eventually this will lead to the Philippines giving up the Sabah claim.
For you, sir, what do you think is the best way to resolve this issue?
Well, we have to reboot. We have to reboot. And from step 1 pa lang, dapat inclusive ng usapan. No? We should talk to all of the sectors in the affected area where we want to bring peace. No? And we want the people first to signify that they want peace. Dapat manggaling sa kanila muna yon. And then we will help, we will provide the environment in which they could discuss very well how to bring about peace among themselves. And we can contribute in bridging gaps where needed. No?
Yes.
That's the way we should do it. We should shepherd the process. Instead of imposing peace, legislate it, put in a piece of paper and give it a deadline. It won't work.
Why do you think there is this urgency on the side of government to have the BBL law passed within the term of the current administration?
That's a very good question, and there's a lot of speculation behind that. Part of it is probably driven by the fact that they'd like to get international recognition and earn a peace prize, right? And that's not a bad thing, right? What we're just saying is that the way you're doing it is wrong, and you'll never get your peace prize that way, right? The other perhaps has to do with international, I don't know if this is the right word, agendas at work, you know, where they'd like to get a piece of the action in Mindanao for their own vested or national interests, right? And part of that has to do with Malaysia, because Malaysia, as you know, has been funding the secessionist movements since the late 70s, and they're now the peace broker. We can't understand why they were chosen as the peace broker, because they're a conflicted third party. But they're also being backed up by an international consortium of nations, and that's, to me, that's basically interfering in our national affairs, right? I mean, if they're saying you're for peace, we're all for peace, right? But don't try to impose it on us. We have to work it out ourselves.
Talking about Malaysia, you were saying that they are behind the funding of certain separatist movements and things like that. Do we have any documentary evidence to that effect?
Well, there's a video in YouTube where Nur Miswari and Mahathir say so. And they were interviewed by Al Jazeera. And everybody naman knows that. It was very open. And it all began because of the so-called Jabida massacre. It all started there. Whether there was a massacre is another story. But that was used by Malaysia to justify their interference in Mindanao by funding the secessionist movements so that the Philippines can be held at bay and away from Sabah.
Sir, what changes have you seen in the Department of Interior and Local Government throughout the years? It's been, what, almost 2 decades, right?
Well, to tell you the truth, I haven't really been paying attention to, because ever since I left government, I was focused on my private sector responsibilities. But rather than looking at specific departments, I was quite concerned about national issues. No? Crime, street crime is an everyday problem for the ordinary Filipino. And that has to do with the quality of our criminal justice system that starts with the police and ends in penology. The criminal justice system is so broken that criminals are just acting with impunity, you know, and the system is overwhelmed as a result. So that's one. The other is poverty. You know, this OFW thing is already getting to be counterproductive, because if you think of the family of the Philippines as a family of families, right? Many of our families are separated. because of poverty. They have to work abroad. In the meantime, it's shattering their children. You know, how can you unify a nation when the families are separated?
Maybe at this point we can have a station break. Sa aming pong pagbabalik, makakasama pa rin natin si former Department of Interior Secretary Raffy Alunan. Stay tuned, please.